Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My name is Lily Evans, and today is the day of my arranged date. The man sitting across from me is Ryan Cooper, my blind date partner. In my previous life, my parents arranged for me to marry him, a soldier, so that I wouldn't have to suffer. But the one I truly loved was my childhood sweetheart, the boy who had been sent to the countryside. Ryan married me only because my parents once saved his life. I didn't care much. After all, he wasn't the one I loved. We lived together like roommates. For 3 years after our wedding, I never let him touch me, and he never once complained. When my parents urged us to have children, he always took the blame himself. I didn't know how to feel about that until the day I died in a fire. When my soul floated above the flames, I saw him, his eyes red and desperate, rushing into the fire. He pulled my burned, unrecognizable body into his arms and cried out in agony. I stared blankly at the man I had lived with for 3 years but never truly understood. His grief seemed to rise with the scorching heat and sink into my being. My transparent chest ached as if my heart were still there. Like a ghost, I followed him. For 10 years I watched him take revenge for me, one enemy at a time. On the day he avenged the last one, he sat in front of my gravestone, drunk out of his mind. His tears fell one by one onto the cold marble, and his lips moved silently. When I leaned closer, I heard him whispering my name. Lily, Lily, Lily. In the years that followed, I watched him care for my parents as if they were his own. When they tried to persuade him to remarry, he just waved his hand without a word. I knew why. Every night, I heard him crying softly in the dark, calling my name over and over again. Lily, Lily, Lily. I watched as the years took his youth away. Before he turned 50, his hair had turned completely white. He kept training soldiers and going on missions, earning medals of honor. Yet he never smiled again. One day, when he passed by a fire, he rushed inside to save a little girl. He succeeded but lost his own life in the process. I watched as my parents buried him beside me, crying so hard they could barely breathe. My father said through his tears, "Ryan, when you came to us and said you wanted to marry Lily, I tried to talk you out of it. You didn't say a word, but I knew your love for her was as deep as ours. That foolish girl just didn't have the blessing to return it. I hope that in your next life, you'll get what you deserve." It turned out he had been the one who asked to marry me. It turned out he had loved me deeply long before I ever knew. My hand passed through my transparent face, and I felt something wet on it. The wind carried a faint sigh. I thought I would see Ryan again as a ghost. But when I opened my eyes, there he was alive, standing right in front of me. He froze, staring at me. I was afraid that if the wind blew, he would disappear. "If you don't want to marry me, then don't," Ryan said awkwardly after a moment, his voice carrying a trace of disappointment. Only then did I realize my face was covered in tears. I rushed forward and threw my arms around him. "I'll marry you," I cried. "I want to marry you." The familiar scent of pine and grass filled my senses, and for the first time I could truly feel him. His large, warm hand gently patted my back as if to say, "Don't cry anymore." My parents, who had been ready to persuade me otherwise, swallowed their words. Seeing the worry in my mother's eyes, I hugged her tightly. "I know you're doing this for my own good, Mom, but I've made up my mind. I really want to marry Ryan." My mother's voice trembled as she hugged me back. "Oh, my sweet girl. Mom, really don't worry," I said, pulling out a handful of colorful ration tickets, stamps, and coupons. Ryan gave me all his savings. In my past life, after our engagement was arranged, Ryan had also tried to give me everything he had, but I refused in anger. This time he had secretly slipped them under my door last night. My mother looked at the pile of tickets and sighed, though her hands never stopped moving. "If Ryan gave them to you, keep them safe. What your father and I give you comes from our hearts. When you get to the base, make sure you get along well with your neighbors. Distant relatives are no help. Good neighbors are better. I'm not worried about Ryan, but you, my stubborn girl, don't you dare bully him. Understand? The Northwest is dry and harsh. Life won't be easy there. If it weren't to keep you from being sent to the countryside, we wouldn't have let you go so far away. We won't be there with you, so take care of yourself." Listening to my mother's endless words of love and worry, my tears began to fall again, no matter how hard I tried to hold them back. In my previous life, I had locked myself in my room and written letters to Jason, saying I would wait for him, completely ignoring how my parents felt. Now that I think about it, I truly deserved whatever came to me. White steam billowed from the train as it chugged into the sky. Watching my parents waving from outside the window, I tightly held Ryan Cooper's hand. Mom, Dad, we'll be fine this time. We'll both live well. The train was packed with people, and since it was winter, the air inside was hot and heavy with the smell of sweat. I leaned against the small table, feeling weak all over. Lily, I have some oranges. Do you want one? Ryan's voice came softly to my ear, a little nervous. Sure, I said, lifting my head and forcing a small smile at him. I knew he felt guilty for not managing to get us a sleeper ticket. But back then he was just a squad leader, a small position. The fact that I was even allowed to follow him here had already taken him quite a bit of effort and favors from his comrades. As the scenery outside the window grew more and more familiar, I knew we were almost at the Northwestern Military District. 2 days and 1 night on the train had left me sore everywhere. Ryan carried all our luggage himself, and when we got off the train I took his arm. I could feel his body stiffen for a moment, so I held on to him even tighter. The Northwest winter was dry and bitterly cold, carrying the scent of dust and yellow earth. Yet I couldn't help but take a deep breath. Feels so good. Breathing fresh air again feels so good. Sergeant. A young soldier in uniform stood by the gate, waving energetically at us. Is this your wife? Ma'am. Hello. You're really beautiful. His face was red from the cold, but his smile was warm and genuine. In my previous life, I had shut myself off from everyone here, refusing to interact, keeping my distance from all of Ryan's comrades. Because of me, Ryan had been criticized by the political officer several times for failing to maintain proper family relations. This time I stood straight and saluted the young soldier. Hello, I'm Lily Evans, Ryan Cooper's wife. Thank you for coming to pick us up. I gave him a sweet smile. The young soldier, beaming even brighter, hurried to open the car door for me, not noticing that Ryan's eyes had turned red when he heard me call myself his wife. The car rumbled along the bumpy road while Ryan quietly pointed out the scenery and landmarks to me. After we arrived at the housing compound, he helped me settle in, unpacked all the luggage, and made sure everything was in order. Then he changed into his uniform and rushed out again, telling me to lock the door and wait for him to come back to cook dinner. I looked around the house, the same one I had lived in for over 3 years in my previous life, and felt a pang of emotion. Back then, I had insisted on sleeping in a separate room from him until the day I died. Seeing him now lay out 2 beds so carefully, I knew he still didn't quite believe that I truly wanted to be his wife this time. Rolling up my sleeves, I moved everything from the other bed onto the main one and clapped my hands in satisfaction. Of course, I didn't really wait for him to come home before starting dinner. I tried to do things the way he used to, fumbling as I lit the fire in the kitchen stove. Looking through the cupboards, I found nothing but a few wilted cabbages in the basket. So I went back to the bedroom, took out the 2 boxes of sesame candy my mother had stuffed into my bag, and went next door to knock on the neighbor's door. A middle-aged woman in a linen-style jacket and a red scarf opened it. Hello, ma'am, I said politely. I'm Lily Evans, Ryan Cooper's wife. We just moved in next door. Oh, you're Ryan's wife, she said with a warm smile. You're such a lovely girl. Come in. It's warm inside. This was Mrs. Wong, our neighbor. In my previous life, I had stayed cooped up in the house for nearly a year before I finally started socializing, and she was the first person I met. She was a kind woman who told me about life in the family housing area, and often advised me to treat Ryan well, and live peacefully with him. But back then I hadn't listened. I always acted cold and distant, keeping everyone at arm's length. Eventually she stopped coming by altogether. Ryan told me before he left that I should keep an eye on you, Mrs. Wong said cheerfully. I didn't expect you two to come back so soon. He didn't even tell me you were arriving. Maybe something urgent came up at the base and he didn't have time to mention it, I said with a polite smile. So in my past life, even Mrs. Wong's kindness toward me had been arranged by Ryan. This man I wanted to ask, I continued a little sheepishly. Is there a small store nearby? We don't have any oil, salt, or seasoning at home, so I can't really cook anything. To be honest, I had no idea where the nearest store was. In my last life, Ryan had handled all those things. Whenever we needed something, he would have one of the logistics soldiers buy it for us. Buy? What for? Mrs. Wong laughed heartily, waving her hand. Just use what's in my house for now. Tomorrow's market day anyway. We'll go into town together then. Without waiting for me to refuse, she stuffed my arms full of little jars and bottles. Soy sauce, oil, salt, and vinegar. When she saw I was struggling to hold everything, she called to her chubby little son to help carry the 2 boxes of sesame candy back to my place. The sesame candy I had tried to give her, and she'd politely refused. I secretly left it on one of her chairs before leaving. When I got home, I dug out a few pieces of puffed rice candy and handed them to the little boy who had followed me. "What's your name?" I asked. "I'm Danny," he said, sniffling as he peeked shyly at the candy in his hands. I couldn't help smiling. "You're adorable. Go on home now. Come play with me again tomorrow, okay?" I ruffled his round little head, thinking that if Ryan and I ever had a child, they might look even cuter than him. I was still staring at the pot, unsure if the cabbage was fully cooked. When Ryan came home, seeing me sitting by the stove, he rushed over and grabbed the spatula from my hand. "Lily, I told you to wait for me to do it. Are you hungry?" "I'm sorry I came back so late." I couldn't help laughing. "You're as cute as little Danny next door." Through the haze of steam, his face flushed bright red. He's really too easy to embarrass, I thought. He looked at the 2 bowls of simple cabbage and egg noodles on the table and seemed to blame himself again. "Lily, I'm sorry. I didn't have time to ask Mrs. Wong to buy groceries. Let's make do with this for tonight. I'll get everything we need tomorrow. Please don't be upset." "It's fine," I said, smiling. "Just having noodles is already a luxury. Back home I only ate coarse grain porridge. Besides, you cook really well. These noodles smell amazing. No wonder my mom wanted me to marry you." The moment the words left my mouth, his expression darkened and I realized I'd said the wrong thing. I quickly added, "But it's not just her idea. I want to marry you too. You're handsome and you can do everything. Who wouldn't like that?" His face turned an even deeper shade of red, like a ripe tomato. How did I never notice in my past life how easily Ryan blushes? After dinner, he washed the dishes, then came over slowly with a piece of paper in his hand. "So, will you go with me tomorrow?" he asked, his face expressionless but his eyes full of tension. When I opened the paper, I froze. It was our marriage application already signed by the commanding officer. In my previous life, I had never seen this document. I hadn't even given Ryan the chance to talk to me after we returned home. I had locked myself in my room. Until the day I died, we never had an official marriage certificate. I was at best his fiancée. "Of course I'll go," I said. "If I don't, who else are you going to marry?" Pretending to be annoyed, I crossed my arms. Ryan immediately panicked. "And no, that's not what I meant. I was just worried." I cut him off with a grin. "Lily Evans always keeps her word. I said I'd marry you, and I will. Or are you the one who doesn't want to marry me now?" "No." He burst out so loudly that I jumped. "Good," I said lightly. "Then get some rest. We have a big day tomorrow." But that night, I still didn't get to feel the soldier's strong arms around me because Ryan, ever the old-fashioned man, insisted that we couldn't sleep in the same bed without the certificate. He carried his blanket and went to the other room. Lying there in the dark, I ground my teeth. "You just wait, Ryan Cooper." The next morning, we rode with the logistics team's truck all the way to the distant city. I wore the dark red jacket my mom had given me, while Ryan, in his uniform, sat straight and serious beside me. Several military wives sitting nearby smiled knowingly, teasing us as newlyweds. Ryan kept a calm expression, but the tips of his ears were bright red. When we arrived, he carefully pulled out our marriage application while I handed over my identification papers and introduction letter. The staff at the Civil Affairs office worked quickly, and in no time they handed us 2 little red booklets. I swear I saw a glimmer of silver at the corner of Ryan's eyes, but when I looked again it was gone, replaced by his usual serious expression. This man is good at hiding things, I thought. He tucked the little red marriage certificate carefully into the pocket of his uniform, as if it were some priceless treasure. At my insistence, we stopped by a photo studio afterward to take a couple's portrait. In the black and white photograph, I was smiling like a flower in full bloom. Ryan smiled softly, and we agreed to pick up our photo at the end of the month so we could send a copy to my parents. Later, under Mrs. Wang's guidance, we bought a lot of things for the house, big and small. Ryan followed quietly behind me the whole time, carrying all the bags without complaint. A friendly middle-aged woman teased him, laughing. "Well, I'll be. Our Sergeant Cooper sure knows how to treat his wife. Unlike my husband, every time I ask him to go shopping with me, he acts like it's torture. He'd rather run 5 miles on the track than step foot in a store." The other women burst out laughing, and I laughed with them. Seeing the tips of Ryan's ears turn red, I reached out discreetly and slipped my hand into his. He immediately tightened his grip on mine, and just like that, we walked hand in hand the whole way back under everyone's amused gazes. That night, I finally realized that all of his calm composure during the day had just been an act. After lights out, the air was thick with heat, and the sound of his voice, low and trembling, calling my name over and over. "Lily, Lily." Each time he called, I answered him softly. At some point, tears began to soak my pillow. From behind, Ryan wrapped his arms tightly around me, whispering words so gentle they almost melted into the air. I could faintly hear him say, "I finally have you, Lily. And hadn't I been waiting for this too?" For decades as a ghost, I had longed just to touch him, to wipe away the tears that fell from his eyes in the dark, but my hands had always passed right through his face. Now at last I lay in his arms, the arms of the man who loved me most. We had both finally gotten what we wished for. 3 years passed, long enough for me to give birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, yet short enough that the revolution ended and the college entrance exams were reinstated. Because staying home all day was too dull, I took a job teaching literature at the elementary school in the military district. Except for the year I gave birth, I spent most of my time teaching and helping with education programs. Through that, I got to know many officers' families, which perhaps helped Ryan's career as well. This time around, his promotions came smoothly. He was already a battalion commander. Of course, he worked hard, earning several second-class merits along the way. When I heard the news that the college entrance exams were being restored, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. In my previous life, it was not long after that announcement that I died because of Jason, my childhood sweetheart. He had returned from the countryside with a girl named Wendy Wong, who he said had once saved his life. He told me he wanted me to give her my college exam spot. If I did, he said he would marry me. At the time, I had still been writing to him constantly, sending him all the money my parents gave me. He kept brainwashing me, saying that since I was a divorced woman, no one but him would ever want me. So foolishly, I gave up my college spot for Wendy. When Ryan found out, he argued with me for the first time in our marriage. "You've ruined your life," he said. And I had shouted back, "My life was already ruined the moment I came here with you." That made him stumble a few steps back, his eyes wide with disbelief and pain. For a moment I had almost wavered, but Jason's words had taken such deep root in my heart that I couldn't pull free. That day, Ryan stormed out of the house and never came back. Later, Mrs. Warman Wong told me he had volunteered for a dangerous mission. I hadn't said a word in response. She sighed and stopped visiting after that. When he finally returned, I was already trapped in the fire. It turned out everything Jason had said to me was a lie. He and Wendy had been together long before. Because of her poor family background, Wendy wasn't eligible to take the college exam. So, the two of them conspired to trick me into giving them my qualification. Then, Jason invited me out, saying he wanted to take me away with him. But instead, he locked me inside an abandoned building, lit a fire and fled, leaving me to burn alone. That same searing pain, the agony of being consumed by flames, seemed to rise again in my memory. I shuddered involuntarily. Then a pair of strong arms wrapped around me from behind. "What's wrong? You were spacing out. Did you just scare yourself?" Ryan's gentle voice pulled me back to the present. "No, I just suddenly felt a little cold," I said, rubbing my arms. He stood up, fetched a coat, and draped it over my shoulders. "I'm heading out for morning drills," he said softly. "Breakfast is warming in the pot. Later, I'll trouble you to take Ethan and Sunny to kindergarten," Ryan said with a gentle smile. He bent down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Over the years, under my quiet influence, he had learned to express his love, Not just in silence but through small, tender actions. Outside, he was still the stoic and disciplined Captain Cooper, the man whose face betrayed no emotion. But at home he was my Ryan. His eyes, his smile, his whole heart filled only with me. Hearing the chatter and laughter of our son and daughter in the other room, I felt a deep warmth spread through me. Everything is different now, I told myself. I have Ryan. I have Ethan and Sunny. I've never contacted Jason and I never will. I won't die miserably in a fire like I did in my past life. Studying my emotions, I returned to my daily routine, content and peaceful. A few days later, Ryan came to me with a request. I don't want to go back, I said before he could even finish. I'm fine here. I have you, the kids, and my students. I don't want to leave. He knelt down beside me, resting his hand on my knee. Lily, he said softly, you're like a seabird that belongs to the open sky and ocean. How could I keep you trapped on the shore? Look at me and tell me honestly, don't you want to go to college? I hesitated. Memories from my past life flooded back. Memories of seeing Jason and Wendy in college, living such bright, colorful lives. They had been surrounded by youth and vitality. Students talking about poetry by the lake, laughing over literature, experimenting in white lab coats under bright lights, chatting freely with foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. Every day for them had been filled with light and color. I, floating unseen in the air back then, had watched them with burning envy. Ryan's voice cut through my thoughts. You'll take the exam in the next couple of days. Go to the school and hand in your resignation. I'll take some leave and drive you and the kids back home. Let your parents watch Ethan and Sunny for a while so you can focus on studying. I believe in you, Lily. I know you'll become a college student. A wave of panic surged through me. You don't want me anymore. Is that it, Ryan? Are you leaving me? He sighed helplessly and pulled me into his arms. Silly girl, what are you talking about? How could I ever not want you? I just don't want to be a distraction while you study. When the day of your exam comes, I'll be there to send you off. I promise. After a moment, he seemed to make up his mind about something. Lily, wait for me, okay? Wherever you get accepted, I'll apply for a transfer there. I'll stay with you always. You believe me, don't you? Looking into his steady, devoted eyes, I slowly nodded. News of my departure spread quickly through the military compound. My students and their parents came to say goodbye. Miss Evans, I'll miss you so much, one little boy said tearfully. I'll miss you too, I said with a smile. I'll study hard and go to your college so I can be your classmate someday, said Danny, puffing out his chest proudly. His mother, Mrs. Wong, gave him a light smack on the head for his boldness, but I laughed, patting his round little head fondly. Then you'd better study hard, Danny, I said warmly, because I'm aiming for Beijing University, and that's not an easy one to get into. He clenched his fists and declared loudly, I can do it. I couldn't help but laugh, my eyes curving into crescents. On the day I was set to leave, Mrs. Wong came by to see me one last time. Lily, I really can't bear to see you go, she said, her eyes already red. But I understand you're meant for greater things. Your future is as boundless as the sky. As for me, well, I'm just like this old fence. You can see the end of it with one look. My husband, Old Chun, well, I don't expect much from him anymore. And as for my boy, who knows what'll become of him when he grows up? Don't say that, Mrs. Wong, I said, holding her hands. Danny's a wonderful boy. When he grows up and gets into a university in Beijing, he should bring you there to see the capital, to stand before Tiananmen and see Chairman Mao's portrait yourself. Her eyes glistened as she gripped my hand tightly. Oh, don't say such things. You'll make me cry. She took a breath, steadied herself, then said softly, Actually, I came to talk to you about Ryan. You know, he's always been a certain kind of man. These past few years, Mrs. Wong said softly. He's gone through so much outside, but he never tells you any of it. She sighed. Old Chun told me that Ryan has been working himself to the bone just to give you and the kids a good life. During drills, he's always the first one to rush forward. Even when he gets hurt, he hides it from you. He just gets treated quickly, then hurries home as if nothing happened. I know how much you two love each other, but still, if you do get into college, please, Lily, promise me you won't start looking down on him. I won't. I never will. I shook my head hard, almost desperately. Anyone else might not want Ryan Cooper, but not me. I'll never stop wanting him. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with him until we're old and gray. Unlike the time I first arrived here when only a single young soldier had come to see me off, this time the platform was crowded. Many people had gathered to say goodbye, watching them from the train window as they grew smaller and smaller. I buried my face in Ryan's chest and sobbed uncontrollably. These people, the most admirable and lovable of all, guarded our nation with everything they had, while their families guarded them without complaint. Even in the barren Northwest, amid the yellow sands and harsh winds, blossoms of love bloomed in silence. When I finally arrived home after 3 years, my parents hugged me and the twins tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Ryan stood beside us, awkwardly rubbing the back of his neck, unsure of what to do. I reached out, grabbed his sleeve, and pulled him into our family hug. He gave me that familiar look, a mix of helplessness and tenderness, and smiled. Returning to the neighborhood where I had lived for more than a decade felt strange. Everything looked the same, yet somehow different. My parents each held one of the children by the hand while Ryan and I walked behind them. But just before we reached home, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to ever see again. Jason's mother greeted my parents warmly, her eyes flicking back and forth between me and Ryan, evaluating us in silence. "Oh my Lily, is that you? Haven't seen you in years. You've grown into such a beautiful young woman. You even have 2 children now. Are you home visiting your family?" My mother's tone turned cold. "Lily's back to take her college entrance exam. My son-in-law brought the family home." Back then, Jason and his parents had all felt hostile when I suddenly got married. Jason thought I had betrayed our relationship, and his parents resented me for avoiding the hardship of being sent to the countryside while their son had to suffer there. For years, they'd spoken ill of us behind our backs. My parents had long since stopped associating with them. "Well, isn't that a coincidence?" Jason's mother continued with a forced smile. "Our Jason will be coming back in a couple of days too. But honestly, what's the point of studying after you've had children? You should just stay home and take care of them. And tell me, can your soldier husband's salary even cover your college tuition?" I was about to snap back, but my mother pressed a calming hand on my arm. "Ryan," she said sweetly, "what did you say your salary was the other day, dear? My memory isn't what it used to be." Ryan caught on immediately. "Not much," he said in his calm, steady voice. "A little over 100 yuan a month, plus ration tickets and postage coupons. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to keep a family of 6 well-fed." I nearly burst out laughing. Watching the 2 of them act in perfect sync made Jason's mother's face go pale with anger. I couldn't help the smirk that crept across my lips. "Hans, being a soldier isn't anything special," she snapped. "Just wait till my son comes back and goes to college. He'll be making several hundred yuan a month." She turned on her heel to leave, but just then a filthy rag dropped from somewhere above and landed squarely on her shoulder. She froze, then bent down, clutching her back, and began shouting curses up toward the apartment building. No one answered her. After a while, she left in embarrassment, muttering under her breath. The moment I stepped back inside, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I burst out laughing so hard my sides hurt. My parents and Ryan exchanged helpless smiles and shook their heads while little Ethan and Sunny whispered to each other, "Mom's gone crazy again." Still giggling, I realized something. Jason was coming back in just a few days. Thankfully, Ryan had taken a full week off to stay with us. As long as he was here, I wasn't afraid of anything. But I didn't expect to see Jason the very next evening. The last image I had of him in my previous life was the moment he threw down the torch and ran as the fire consumed everything around me. This time, the first thing I saw was him standing at our gate, blocking my path as I held Ethan's and Sunny's hands. His expression was dark and hateful. "I need to talk to you," he said. Keeping my voice steady, I told the kids to go inside first. Then I walked with him to the center of the courtyard. "Let's see what you can possibly do in broad daylight, right in front of my house," I thought. But I had underestimated just how disgusting this man could be. Or perhaps I had never truly known him at all. The first words out of his mouth were a demand. He wanted me to give up my college entrance exam spot to the same girl he had brought back from the countryside, Wendy Wong, as compensation for betraying him. I actually laughed out loud. "Betray you? What kind of nonsense is that? You think I owe you something? Please, who do you think you are? The Communist Party itself? My voice sharpened as anger surged through me. You've got some nerve. You want my college spot? Why don't you go ask the university president to give up his seat for you instead? You're unbelievable. I glared at him, my hands clenched at my sides. You're nothing but a toad pretending to be a prince. Ugly and shameless, I snapped, glaring at him. Did planting rice seedlings in the countryside rot your brain too? Jason's face twisted with disbelief. Lily Evans, what happened to you? You look and talk like some shrew now. My mother was right. You married some uneducated brute, and now you've turned into a low-class farm woman yourself. You watch your mouth, I shouted. You're insulting a soldier. You believe I won't report you. He dared to insult my Ryan. My blood boiled. Listen to me carefully, I said, pointing a finger at him. You're not even worth a single hair on my husband's head. Ryan Cooper is a man who stands tall. Someone who protects his family and his country. And you? What do you even have to show for yourself? I spat at the ground near his feet. If I ever hear you badmouth my husband again, I swear you'll regret it. Then I shoved him hard and turned to run inside, my hands trembling behind my back. No matter how much I tried to act strong, the fear from my past life still lingered. After all, it had been his hands that condemned me to the fire. That terror was something I could never fully shake. But the moment I stepped through the door, I froze. Ryan was standing there watching me with a gentle smile. So that's how I look in your heart, he said quietly. You heard everything? I asked, my stomach tightening. I have nothing to do with Jason. We just grew up in the same neighborhood, that's all. My voice wavered with guilt and unease. Ryan stepped closer, bent his head, and brushed his lips softly against mine before pulling me into his arms. I know, he murmured. I heard everything you said. Don't worry, Lily. I'll never let him hurt you again. What did you say? I asked, lifting my head from his chest. He smiled faintly. Nothing. I said, don't worry. Just focus on your studies. For the next few days, I prepared myself for whatever Jason might try next. I knew he wouldn't give up so easily. But strangely, the whole compound remained peaceful. No one came to bother me, and even our home was unusually quiet. Worry still lingered at the back of my mind, but I forced myself to concentrate on studying. Ryan cooked something different for me every day. And my mother soon began comparing him to my father loudly, and with plenty of sarcasm. Some people's sons-in-law are real blessings, she said meaningfully, earning a round of laughter from everyone. My father grumbled good-naturedly while trying to coax her back into a good mood. Ryan just watched me quietly the whole time. I noticed it often. Whenever I grew tired from studying and looked up, he'd be sitting across from me in the rocking chair, watching me eat. If I caught his eye, he'd quickly turn away, pretending to focus on his food. In the evenings, when I dragged him outside for a walk, he followed a few steps behind me. I'd look back and catch him staring again. Why are you looking at me like that? I tease. He'd blink innocently. Was I? You were. Well, he'd say softly. Then I guess I was. The week passed quickly. When the time came for him to return to the base, I went to the station to see him off. For the first time in public, Ryan wrapped his arms around me tightly. And for the first time I felt his cold tears soak into my neck. He didn't say a word, but I could feel the pain in his silence. Ryan, I whispered. You promised me you'd come back to see me off on exam day. You have to keep your word, okay? Otherwise. I smiled playfully. Otherwise, I won't like you anymore. He nodded hard, his face buried in my shoulder. The conductor's voice rang out, urging passengers to board. Ryan hugged me one last time. Tight, so tight it felt like he was trying to merge me into his very being. Then, without looking back, he got on the train. I knew he didn't want me to see him cry. Silly man, I thought. I've seen you cry countless times before, but if this was how he wanted it, I would let him have that dignity. The days of studying that followed were tense and monotonous. I threw myself into my books and almost forgot about Jason entirely until one evening, my mother came home from work, eyes gleaming with excitement. Lily, guess what? She said, lowering her voice like she was sharing gossip. Jason's family got reported. That woke me right up. Reported? I asked. She said, looking smug. Someone anonymously reported his father for smuggling steel from the factory. He got caught red-handed by the security team and was taken away. They spent a fortune trying to get him out, but it didn't work. Too much evidence. So now the entire Lee family's reputation is ruined. Jason's mother, who used to look down on that girl, Wendy Wine, had no choice but to agree to their marriage. Apparently, a few days ago, they went to Wendy's hometown to arrange the wedding. Her family's background is bad. They were once labeled landlords, but they still have money. When Jason's mom saw their gold bars and silver ingots, her eyes practically popped out of her head. I don't know what kind of deal they made, but Wendy's pregnant now. They're not even talking about the college exam spot anymore. She's just staying home, waiting for Jason to get into college and take her away with him. I listened quietly, a wave of complicated emotions washing over me. In my past life, I hadn't interacted much with Wendy, so I never knew whether she had a hand in setting that fire. But now, thinking about everything that had changed, I couldn't help feeling a faint, bittersweet sense of relief and closure. But not long after they entered college, Jason and Wendy broke up. After Jason's death, she went abroad, and I never paid attention to her again. My feelings toward Jason were complicated. After all, everything Wendy had done, the manipulation, the cruelty had been for him. Still, seeing the Lee family fall from grace filled me with a strange satisfaction. It gave me new energy even for studying. In the winter of 1977, the long-awaited college entrance exam finally arrived. The night before my exam, Ryan came all the way to my house. His hair had turned noticeably silver, and I couldn't help but laugh. "You promised me we'd grow old together," I teased. "But it looks like you've gone and gotten old before me." His calloused hands paused for a moment. Then he grinned, that familiar crooked smile, and didn't say a word. Much later, I learned that he had run more than 10 miles that night just to catch the last train home. Also, he could see me before the exam. The test lasted 2 days. During those 2 days, Ryan waited for me outside the school gate from dawn till dusk. When I finally came out, he handed me a steaming hot roasted sweet potato he'd been keeping warm against his chest. I climbed onto the back of his bicycle, chattering excitedly about the questions from the exam. The air was freezing, but the sunlight was warm, wrapping us in a golden glow. When the results came out, I had done it. I was admitted to Beijing University, the school I dreamed of for so long. I chose to major in medicine partly because it was something I genuinely loved and partly because of all the scars I'd seen on Ryan's body from years of service. I wanted to become strong enough to be his support, the one who could heal him when he was hurt. My mother later told me that Jason had failed miserably on the exam. His score was abysmal, and he spent his days drinking himself into oblivion. One night, he got into an argument with Wendy and pushed her to the ground. She lost their baby. After that, Wendy returned to her hometown and the Lee family fell silent in the entire neighborhood. When I heard the news, I just smiled. You see, I thought karma never forgets anyone. Before leaving for Beijing, I left the children in my parents' care and went back with Ryan to the northwest to visit everyone. We saw Mrs. Wong, little Danny, and so many of our friends and students. I showed Danny my admission letter and told him, "One day you'll have one of these too. I'll be waiting for you to show it to me in person." He stared at the letter with wide eyes. And I told him, "Study hard. Only through learning can you build weapons that can never be destroyed. With better weapons, your father won't get hurt so easily. The officers in the army will be stronger, and our country will be even greater." Danny nodded, not fully understanding. But that was fine. He will someday. Things would only get better from here. Our visit didn't last long before it was time to say goodbye again. This time it was Ryan's turn to watch me leave. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled at him and said, "I'll be waiting for you in Beijing. Waiting for you to hold me again. Waiting for you to tell me all your little secrets." I had waited for him through 2 lifetimes. I could wait another 2 years. I had time. Years passed quietly, and I finally graduated from Beijing University with honors. On the day of the ceremony, beneath the golden light of summer, I spotted Ryan Cooper standing in the crowd. His hair had turned silver, but his smile was the same as the day we first met. He stood tall in his crisp uniform, his eyes filled with pride, love, and the warmth of every moment we had shared. I ran to him, threw my arms around him, not caring who saw. He leaned close, his voice trembling as he whispered, "Lily, I kept my promise. And you? You've kept the dream alive for both of us." Tears streamed down my face as I smiled. "We've kept each other, Ryan." We returned to the northwest, to our small house, surrounded by the same trees and the same soft wind that had once carried our youth. I opened a small clinic near the military base, and Ryan continued his service. Each time he came home, he would sit on the porch and tell me stories about the young soldiers he trained. His voice calm, his eyes gentle. Our twins, Ethan and Sunny, grew up in laughter, wrapped in the warmth of a love that had already conquered life and death. And every time I looked at them, I knew every hardship had been worth it because I had not only been given another chance to live, but had also learned how to love completely, trust completely, and live completely. Sometimes during quiet nights, Ryan would take my hand and whisper, "If there's another life after this one, I'll still marry you." I'd rest my head on his shoulder and smile. "You don't have to wait for another life," I'd say softly. "In this one, I've already loved you enough for both." Outside, the sunset spilled across the sky, bathing our joined hands in golden light. The hands of a soldier who once lost the woman he loved, and of the woman who once died in the fire, now holding on to peace together after all the storms.